team?
He was limited. Take that however you want.
No, I could care less. I think I got paid the whole time I was there, but I'm more than blessed for the opportunity given me. And, that organization, they took a shot on me, Miss Amy, and they did a great job by me.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Two pieces of Packers audio from this afternoon. Neither one of those comments are more than about 2 hours old. Matt LaFleur going back and forth with reporters. It's clear Matt LaFleur was not going to tell us anything further about Jordan Love and his health and his status. He was limited in practice today. Was he limited in team? He was limited. But was he able to do team? He was limited. Because remember, reporters can't watch everything. So reporters were able to see Jordan Love taking some snaps, a rollout, throwing a couple balls, and I think they were, okay, so for the rest of practice, what can you tell us? He was limited. He was Mr. Limited. So that was the first part of the intro. That comment that you maybe, hopefully, I hope, made out clearly was Malik Willis, asked by Matt Schneidman, and this clip is kind of circling around the internet right now. I'm glad it jumped out to me, and I grabbed it in time to put it into the intro because everyone's kind of celebrating it on Twitter right now. Asked, are you sure you don't have a chip on your shoulder against the Titans and, them trading you away? And I loved his answer. He said, hey, I was paid the whole time I was there. They drafted me. They gave me an opportunity. Circling back to some of the things that we talked about on Monday's show, I just really like Malik Willis. I don't know if he's any good as a quarterback. He was able to be good enough on Sunday to help the Packers win a game, and on Sunday, that's all that mattered. We'll see if he plays this weekend. Jordan Love back at practice, so now we can try to figure out where they go from here at quarterback. But really likable guy, and I wanted to grab that audio and play that for you. We can listen to it. I'll try to isolate it without the music, anything behind it, so hopefully if you couldn't make it out, I will play it for you in a form that makes it a little bit easier to understand and to hear. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, as always. You can watch the live stream as well, up and running. I'm not getting any complaints about sound, so that's always my sign that it's working. And you can stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Twitter, at Wisco Grant. Little breaking news. It went final just as the show was beginning. The Brewers are back-to-back NL Central champions because the Cubs blew a 3-1 lead late, and the Oakland Athletics took them down at Wrigley today. I was watching the Cubs game most of the afternoon, despite a 3-1 lead, and Jeff Garland singing I almost said the national anthem. Jeff Garland did not sing the national anthem, although maybe he's a good singer. I don't know. But he sang, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. I was watching the marquee broadcast. So the Brewers won the division. I was caught betwixt and between on this one. I never want to cheer for the Cubs. And of course, I want the Brewers to clinch a playoff spot and clinch the division as quickly as they can. But I kind of wanted them to do it of their own volition tonight. I didn't want it to happen in the middle of the day when nothing's going on. So they'll celebrate after tonight's game, win or lose, which is a little weird. Brewers fans were beggars. I can't be a chooser as well. So congratulations to the Brewers on clinching the NL Central. It just went final less than 3 or 4 minutes ago. Pete Kerr Armstrong grounded into a game-ending double play. He was the tying run. So as I was starting the show, I typed in the title and everything for the live stream, and it's titled "The Crew Clinches." And I'm like, man, I hope this doesn't get tied up. And then the title's wrong. The Cubs come back to win this one, but I was a little nervous when the tying run got put on. But Pete Kerr Armstrong, Pete Crow, PCA. I always said PCW. PCA grounding into the double play to end the game. So the Brewers are Central Division champions, which we could talk about over the course of tonight's show. Jesse Temple going to stop by The Athletic to talk Badger football and what happened, what he saw against Bama this last weekend. He'll be here in about 20 minutes. Kalyn Kahler from ESPN is going to join us at 5:30 to talk all things NFL. She's got a new story out that makes Aaron Rodgers part of the story, not him directly, but his situation with the Jets. It's very interesting. She came out with a story last week at ESPN about the backup quarterback crisis in the NFL. Applies to the Packers as well. Plus, she's just a really good football reporter, writes really good stories. So we'll pick her brain on lots of different things. That's coming up in hour number 2. I know the Brewers just clinched the division, or the Cubs clinched it for them. I want to start with the Packers because what do you want me to do? I'm not underwhelmed. Congrats to the Brewers. They won the division. But it feels a little weird to happen in the middle of the day when they're not even playing. So I want to start with the Packers and the news of Jordan Love's return. We'll take a break. And if you have thoughts on the Brewers winning the division, I'll take your calls and we can discuss it on the other side of this break. Jordan Love was back at practice today. You might have seen the videos. He was taking some snaps, rolling out, making throws. he was able to move around. It's not like he was just static, taking balls, from a static handoff, just throwing. He was moving around. I don't know that he was sprinting full bore, but how often do you see quarterbacks do that in practice? Anyways, so Jordan Love back at practice today. And you heard Matt LaFleur go back and forth with reporters. Yes, he is limited.
He was limited.
In team, what did he do in team?
He was limited.
He is limited. What did he do after the media was ushered away from practice? Can you tell us anything?
He was limited.
He was limited. He was limited.
He was limited.
He was limited. So that was Matt LaFleur. A couple questions and answers that I think are worth listening to from earlier today. From Matt LaFleur, from a couple different reporters, talking about now the balance of preparing two quarterbacks. Right? It's not just that the Titans now have to prepare for the possibility of both quarterbacks. And Coach Callahan in Tennessee said today, and I saw this on Twitter, we're going to prepare for both guys, right? Which is what you want to force an opponent to do. But the Packers, and maybe they know, maybe Matt LaFleur in his deep down in his heart and soul and his plums knows who's starting. Maybe he knows Jordan Love is starting. Maybe he knows that Malik Willis is starting, but they're going to give both reps and practice both this week. I thought Ryan Wood asked a really good question. How do you divvy up the reps? And how do you get both of these quarterbacks ready? Because Jordan Love had barely gotten his season started in week 1, and then he missed well over a week of practice, and he missed a game. Jordan Love could use the reps. Malik Willis has only been here for 3.5 weeks. He could use the reps too. There's only so many reps to go around, which coaches constantly talk about. There's only so many reps. You only have so many practices. So how do you prepare two guys? Because I think both Jordan Love and Malik Willis could use the snaps. How do you handle that? How do you divvy up the snaps? That was Ryan Wood's question. Here's Matt LaFleur's answer. Here is Matt LaFleur's answer.
So that's always a challenge. And so I think, throughout the course of the week, hopefully you get a better indication, and that kind of leads to some of the decisions that you have to make.
It's not really a lengthy answer. It's going to be a challenge for the Packers this week, right? Really playing Matt LaFleur's answer and his comment on that is just a means for me to make a point of this. It's going to be interesting to see how they divvy up practice reps, assuming that now Jordan Love is back at practice and he will continue to practice, assuming he doesn't suffer a setback, or assuming today wasn't just all for show. They're going to have to divvy up reps between two quarterbacks who both need the reps. Both could use the reps. Malik Willis has been here less than a month. Jordan Love has barely played football this year, and they got a game to win on Sunday. This is a winnable game. I think the Titans defense is nasty. Matt LaFleur was asked about that, talked about that today. Maybe we'll hear that before the end of the show. Now, Will Levis has been a little bit of a disaster, but Bryce Young had been a disaster last year until he had a good game against the Packers. It can happen. And I know that was Joe Barry, and we all had that over Joe Barry's head. I think, yes, I don't know that Joe Barry was always a great defensive coordinator for some matchups, and we've talked about that. I also think in the NFL, every dog has its day. I think every quarterback can get hot for an afternoon, even if they're limited, even if they've been turnover machines, as Will Levis has been. He could have a day, right? He could. I wouldn't bet on it, but he could. This is a winnable game on Sunday is my point. Even though the Tennessee's defensive line is nasty, that defense is real. Will Levis could have his first adult performance of the year. They're capable of running the ball. I don't really love their skill position players, but they do have some options there. This is a winnable game. This is not Kansas City on the road. This is not Minnesota on the road. This isn't even Detroit or Chicago, right? This is a winnable game. The Packers should really, 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 really try to get this one, whether it's Malik Willis or obviously Jordan Love. At that point, then we're kind of back to the status quo, and you want to win every game. And I think they'd be favored if Jordan Love plays. I don't know. I haven't seen the line. I know the Packers were underdogs up until today. I don't know if that's shifted. I'm not a gambler. It's just something to kind of keep your eye on and watch with interest. I like seeing how those numbers move and how the public, and how Vegas, obviously, but then how the public bets their money and how that influences the lines. This should be a winnable game for the Packers. And divvying up snaps between two quarterbacks now, I think, becomes an interesting task over the next couple of days. A couple of questions from today's presser, two specifically. One from Tom Silverstein, one from Jason Wilde. And I want to play them for you both and then make a little bit of a point, because something's been grinding my gears a little bit this week. I'm not completely and totally enraged. I'm not bent out of shape. I'm slightly annoyed. Okay. So here's Tom Silverstein basically asking, hey, is going from Jordan Love to Malik Willis, is that a big departure? Is that a big change for the offensive line, for the wide receiver, for the coordinators? Is that a big deal?
Whether Malik was in there or Jordan or Sean, I feel like we could have done it with any of those guys. So, but that's why you want some volume to your playbook. and so you can pull out what you need to pull out on a given week.
Okay. Jason Wilde then later in the presser asked Matt LaFleur, would you rather have a normal game plan? Like, is it ideal to give a running back 30 carries a game? Is that really what you'd want to do in normal circumstances?
I don't want to necessarily say that because every situation is a little bit different. And I mean, if you're feeding a guy and he's doing well and he's feeling great, why wouldn't you keep doing that? So I think you got to adjust. And if he's being effective and he can handle the wear and tear, then we'll certainly continue to do that.
The Packers had like 150 rushing yards in the first quarter. I relate with Matt LaFleur with this part of his answer.
Doing well and he's feeling great. Why wouldn't you keep doing that?
Why wouldn't you keep doing it? Why wouldn't you keep running the ball? Why wouldn't you have conducted the game plan and operate through the second, third, fourth quarter like they did on Sunday? I've been a little annoyed. I'm not angry. I'm not out of my mind, bent out of shape. I've just been a little annoyed because since Sunday, I've had to listen to Packers fans, on Bill's post-game show or on Twitter. Well, they didn't adjust in the second half. They didn't start throwing the ball. They didn't have a secondary game plan. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. And now all week long, I hear Packers fans calling into Bill's show, calling into the show, commenting online. It's like, well, they're going to have to do this, that, and the other thing this weekend. Matt LaFleur, do you really want to be running the ball that much? Matt LaFleur, is that the game plan that you really want to employ week to week? It's like everyone's bent out of shape about style points. It's like the Packers didn't win the right way on Sunday. It's like the Packers played some sort of dirty football game on Sunday, and that's not good enough. Right, moving forward, well, that can't happen again. I assure you, if they're able to run for 150 yards in the first quarter on Tennessee, they better have the same game plan. They better continue to operate the same way, whether Jordan Love or Malik Willis or friggin' Sean Clifford is under center. I don't understand, Packers fans, why so many of you, and why a couple members of the media as well, are hung up on style points. Do you really want to be running the ball then? If it works, yeah, I do. Why would you not? You'd be dumb not to. The old adage, do it until they stop you. I don't know if that's an adage, but that's sentiment, right? If they can't stop you, why would you stop doing that thing? If they can't stop that thing, why would you stop doing that thing? I'm just a little annoyed this week. Matt LaFleur's getting asked so many questions and so many talking points on sports talk radio and again on the internet, if you consider that to be a real place. I do, but I know many don't. Like, well, moving forward, that won't work. But it worked on Sunday. Am I the only one who's just stoked that the Packers won a game with a backup quarterback on Sunday? That's hard to do. That's really hard to do. Lamar Jackson's healthy. The Ravens are 0-2. Matthew Stafford is healthy. The Rams are 0-2. Right? The Bengals, Joe Burrow looked great on Sunday. They're 0-2. It's hard to win in this league. Can we all give it a rest a little bit? Like the Packers cheated on Sunday. Like they didn't just line up and straight up drill the Colts through the offensive line, through blocking on the outside with tight ends and wide receivers. They just gave it to them. And no, it wasn't pretty. And yeah, it got a little boring in the second half. But my God, I'd rather watch the second half of Packers Colts 10 times in a row than watch whatever version of Badgers football we're getting right now. Like, it worked. They won. Be happy. Take yes for an answer, everybody. Okay, and as we move forward with Malik Willis or Jordan Love, if he's able to play, well, then we can adjust our conversation to that game and to what's going on in that game, in that matchup, on that given Sunday. But I think we all gotta chill a little bit. Like the Packers committed mortal sins, like they sold their soul to get that win on Sunday. Take it and say thank you. Please, just say thank you. Take yes for an answer, Packers fans. Let's take a call, and then we can react a little bit if you're interested and you have thoughts to the Brewers clinching the division, or rather the Cubs kind of clinching it for them this afternoon. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Let's go, Grant. It's Thomas.
Hey, Thomas. What's going on?
Well, first off, let's talk Jordan Love. Very, very optimistic. I have not listened to LaFleur's midweek presser yet, but I'm sure he mentions Love in there. Got asked many a times about him. This is optimistic.
Just played it.
I remain hopeful within. Oh, go ahead after you.
No, I mean, I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm hoping within the next week or two he'll be back. At this rate, I mean, if he has the brace on or that little, I think it was like a brace or some kind of the sleeve. That's
a light brace under a sleeve. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Something like that. But anyway, Brewers. My Rob dog, by the way, he says hi to you, by the way, and he said, "Let's go." He texted me as soon as they they won. By the way, I hope he calls into your show sometime.
He's
know he
more of a
loves to text
commenter
me,
and a
but
tweeter. I don't know that I don't know if Robin Stoddard's ever called before.
I don't think so, but I've told him he should. So anyway, I got that going. And as far as this weekend, the Badgers, you were just mentioning the Badgers do need to win this weekend. That was a rough game against Bama. I only caught a part of it just because of marching band, and I'm a busy guy, Grant. So
That much
the
is
Badgers are doing awful right now, and they need to turn it around quick, especially without Tyler Van Dyke. I heard about the injury, didn't really see it, but heard the story about it. That seems rough. So
yeah, he's out. He's out for the rest of the year. I think it's his. Did the Badgers even say? I know it's a knee injury, Thomas. I appreciate it. Yeah, the Badgers have this weekend off. They go to USC. USC announced today, by the way. I think it was Brett McMurphy reported that USC sold that game out. USC all of a sudden is people poke fun at them because that Coliseum sometimes is empty, but it's amazing they have a top 20 team and they look to have taken a step from last year with Lincoln Riley to this year with Lincoln Riley. Amazing how some coaching regimes are capable of advancing from one year to the next. That game has been sold out. Now, Michigan, they have first this weekend, but then the Badgers will travel out there. And we talk about that with Jesse. He'll join us in just a little bit. Jesse Temple of The Athletic. The Brewers, yes, clinching the division. If you're just joining the show, back-to-back years, they are NL Central champs. Pat Murphy's at the podium right now. If he says anything funny, I'll pass that along. And good for the Cubs and Craig Counsell. I appreciate it. Craig Counsell helping the Brewers win the division. What would that have been? For the second time in 2 years, but for the, 3-5, 4-6, 3-6? I'm not sure. All these playoff berths, they start to get difficult to keep track of in Milwaukee. Good for Craig, though. A new challenge in Chicago. Challenge of finding a way to fill your free time in October. Maybe spending time with his family. I think that's what this was all about in the first place. So 608-321-1670. Your thoughts on the Brewers, Jordan Love returning to practice, anything you want. I'll sneak in. We got time for some calls before Jesse Temple at 5:30. Wisco Sports Show. Got a couple minutes here to get in some calls if you're interested. If you feel so inclined, 608-321-1670. Give me a call or send me a text. The Brewers have won the NL Central because the Cubs couldn't beat the Athletics. Who was it I was talking to on the phone last night? Maybe it was Matt in Cross Plains. It was like, yeah, if the Cubs lose a game or two this series, the Brewers are going to be well on their way to the division. But they're playing the Athletics. And I'm like, yeah, Craig Counsell's never been known to manage down to the level of his opponent. Rockin' Rick says, on my point about running the ball, and I agree, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Bobby in Menominee says, do you really want to run 10 Melvin Gordon fly sweeps? Yes, exactly. Imagine going back to the 2011 or 2012 Big Ten championship game back when the Badgers were good and saying, well, yeah, you won the game, but you scored 70 points. But do you really want to have that many carries? Yeah, if it's working. Everyone can get off Matt LaFleur's butt. Packers fans, learn to take yes for an answer. They won. They ran the ball down the Colts' throat. We don't need to reinvent the wheel moving forward. Well, how do we get Malik Willis? How do we do this? I don't know. Do what you need to win the game on Sunday. And if that means running the football more, great. And I would imagine they're going to have to work in some other things because Tennessee's defense is good. Their defensive line is nasty. This text says, if the Badgers rush for 150 yards in the first quarter, fans would be crying with excitement. They would expect that game to end with 600 rushing yards. Willis led the Packers, and cheeseheads question the game plan. That's kind of what I'm saying. I don't think Packers fans are mad about it per se. I don't know why everyone isn't overwhelmingly thrilled with how Sunday went. It's like we're nitpicking and asking for style points. Whatever. It's not the biggest deal in the world. It's just something that's been kind of bugging me this week. 608-321-1670. By the way, on the Badgers, Jesse Temple going to join us in about 10 minutes from the Athletics to talk about what he saw against Bama on Saturday. Let's go back to the phones. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Ron from Madison.
Ron in Madison. Ron, welcome.
Yeah. 2 days last week before the Packer game, I told a friend, the Packers are going to run the ball and the defense is going to step up enough for the Packers to win this game. And I was happy with that. So
that's all you needed to see, right, Ron? That's all that was needed on Sunday. Why would Matt LaFleur start dialing up trick plays and deep shots? They didn't need to.
And Willis was pretty good, 12 out of 14. I'll take that any day.
And you know what's funny, Ron? I don't think I mentioned this yesterday or on Monday. I know I mentioned this on the Sunday night pod I did with Andy and Perry with Pack-A-Day, but it's almost a testament to Malik Willis. It's like, hey, you're only going to throw 12 times, but when you throw, we need you to be on point. And the same with the wide receivers, right? You might only get 1 or 2 targets, but you need to be ready and you need to make the play, right? Where a lot of times quarterbacks, maybe it take a little while to get in a groove. Wide receivers take a little while to warm up. Nobody had that luxury on Sunday, right? Like when Malik Willis had to throw on that first third down or whatever it was, that ball had to be perfect. That ball to Dontavian Wicks had to be perfect, and it was, right? So I think just the lack of volume meant that everyone had to be locked in and polished and ready to go, and I think we saw that on Sunday, Ron.
Well, that one throw to Dobbs for 41 yards, that was the play of the game.
Yeah.
That was the play of the game.
And that I think was an example of Dobbs, kind of not picking up Malik Willis. Thank you, Ron, for the call. It's not like it was the worst throw in the world, but it was a jump ball. And if anything, it was probably a little bit behind Dobbs. And he came back to the ball and made a play for his quarterback. If you look at the attempts and if you look at the breakdown of the attempts and the receptions and the targets. So let me pull up the box here. So as Ron said, Malik Willis was 12 of 14. 14 attempts is very few. Jared Goff threw over 50 on Sunday, right? For point of reference. 14 attempts. Not a lot. Malik Willis completed 12 of them. Right? So again, it's like in basketball. As a bench player, you might come in for a 4-minute stretch. You don't have time to get warmed up. You don't have time to get in a groove. You got to come off the bench and be good right away. It's kind of that same idea with Malik Willis. You're only going to throw 14 times, but those limited throws are throws that you kind of need to make for us to win the game. And the same with the wide receivers, right? Romeo Dobbs was targeted 3 times. He had 3 catches. Wicks had 4 targets, 3 catches. And the one that he didn't pull in kind of hit him in the hands. I bet Wicks would tell you that it's probably a ball he should catch. Tucker Kraft, 2 targets, 2 catches. Jaden Reed, 2 targets, 2 catches. Musgrave, 1 target, 1 catch. Marshawn Lloyd, 1 target, 1 catch. Right? Like these wide receivers, when they got opportunities and they were limited, they were ready. And they didn't let the ball hit the ground, they didn't need to warm up. They didn't need to kind of get some reps before. No. You all get limited opportunities tonight. 1 or 2 targets, maybe. and you need to make the most of them, and everybody did. I think that's a testament to just how buttoned up both Malik Willis and his wide receivers and tight ends were. 608-321-1670. One more call, then we'll get to Jesse Temple. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Yeah, it's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell, what's going on? Before 5 o'clock, you've been around a 5 to 5:15 caller in that range. What was interesting schedule today? What happened? What changed?
Just a shorter day. Started a little bit earlier.
Good for you. Good for you. Get after it. I like that.
I've been telling people this week that Malik Willis just had his Kurt Phillips game, and you just kind of mentioned it with the Big Ten championship in 2012.
Yeah,
that was the Kurt Phillips game where he just handed the ball off 45 times for 530 yards, and I think he threw like 4 passes the entire game, but no one cared because the Badgers won 70-30.
Hey, he caught a pass in that game too, I believe, if I remember correctly.
I believe he caught a pass from James White, maybe something like that.
Seems right. That would be my guess as well.
But yeah, that was really all I had to say. It's funny that you mentioned the 2012 championship, Big Ten championship, because that's exactly what I've been thinking for the last 3 days. Yep, that's what we needed from him, and that's what he gave to us. So
that's all we needed.
Why would we complain?
Am I barking up the wrong tree here when I just get a little tired of all the nitpicking? It was like, yeah, they won, or yeah, they ran the ball for a lot, but Matt LaFleur could have this, would have that. It's just like they just won a game with a backup quarterback, Darnell. Why am I not the only one just thrilled to be alive this week?
The thing is, winning in the NFL is hard.
It's hard to win in this league. Thank you. It's
been proven by, a team with a pretty decent defense that's 1-1. Caleb Williams and the Bears, right? All you heard all offseason was, the Bears won the offseason. And then they barely beat the Titans at home, and then they lose on the road. Now, against a good team, but it's hard to win in the NFL. You can play good games and still lose. You can play bad games and win. Things happen, but, the Packers went out there and got a win. They didn't have their best stuff. It was pretty obvious, but they did what they needed to do to get a W, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day, especially without your starting quarterback.
Especially without – there's teams – and Darnell, I keep bringing this up, so not to be repetitive, and thank you for the call. There's teams with good starting quarterbacks that are healthy, that are 0-2. The fact that the Packers were able to get a win on Sunday with a backup, I want to make sure everyone understands how significant that is. And I feel like this fan base is missing that a little bit. And I'm not doing my job if I don't try to drive that point home, at least a little. At least just a little bit. All right, let's take a break. Jesse Temple, The Athletic, our weekly hit with Jesse. He is excellent. He is the best. You hear him on the camp with Zach Heilprin as well. You read his work at The Athletic. He's going to join us next to talk Badgers and what he saw against Bama. Wisco Sports Show. Kalyn Kahler from ESPN going to join us in about an hour. Talk about her new story about salary cap management in the NFL. It's very interesting. I'm not sure that I completely understand it, which is why I'm excited to have her on. She also wrote a story about the NFL's backup quarterback crisis. That was out either last week or the week before. And that's applicable to us as we just saw Malik Willis win a game, which I'm trying to tell Packers fans, just appreciate that. Enjoy it. Stop worrying about the style points. We can worry about style points maybe when Jordan Love comes back, things are a little bit normal. Not worried about style points right now. I am worried, very worried about our Wisconsin Badgers football team because I'm really not sure what they're good at. I'm really not sure what's going on there. They got rocked by Bama. I was there in attendance. The pageantry, the atmosphere was great. The game sucked. The game sucked eggs. Jesse Temple was there as well. Here's our conversation from earlier today. Jesse of The Athletic. Enjoy. We're here with Jesse Temple of The Athletic covering the Badgers. Lucky enough to have him every week. So the Bama game, Jesse, I was there. Got down there early with Ebo on Regent Street, and I thought the crowds were great. The energy was unbelievable. I went over to see the Big Noon set. That was popping. The student section was basically full, and the stripes in the bowl looked great. Like, I thought everything was great. And then the game happened. That wasn't so great. But before we talk about the game, Alabama doesn't visit Wisconsin very often. Like, what did you think of just the whole thing, this anticipated game now for a couple of years? What did you think of it start to finish?
Well, the anticipation was fantastic. Obviously made for a week's worth of stories. And I know these players were jacked about the opportunity. Guys were talking about this game when they were still in high school, some of the in-state guys, because it was put on the schedule 5 years earlier. And they understood what was at stake. They understood this is a rare opportunity for a top 10 non-conference team to come into Camp Randall Stadium. And Wisconsin as a program has not been where it has wanted to be for 5 years. And man, we can go out there. This is the thought process. We can go out there and we can put ourselves on the map in a national way. Obviously, that's not what happened. So if you're a Badgers fan, it was all great until, Alabama scored, and then it was pretty much over.
Yeah, it was 3-0. And at that moment, we were feeling pretty good. You're like, man, Nathaniel Vaco smoked that thing. The crowd is great. And the crowd was excellent. You can't make the case now. It dwindled in the second half when the game was out of hand, but despite, I think, lackluster performances against Western Michigan and South Dakota, the energy at kickoff was excellent. Madison was ready. The fans were ready. The game just, the game didn't deliver. Tyler Van Dyke goes down really early, and I didn't even realize. I was kind of up. I was a little higher, and I didn't even realize until someone texted me kind of in between drives. What do you think was, other than, oh, crap, to censor my words, what do you think was going through Luke Fickell's mind as Tyler Van Dyke goes down in that spot?
I mean, less than an ideal situation. I know they said in the preseason, and so Longo mentioned this, if Braden Locke has to be our guy as the starter, if he were our starter, we would be happy with that because they liked what both quarterbacks did. But there's a reason why Tyler Van Dyke won the job. He had a distinct advantage through his play in practices. He had a stronger arm, a better ability in the read option game to make plays and react, more mobility. And you lose those things. Look, it's an extremely difficult spot for Braden. He unfortunately had to go through this spot a year ago when Tanner Mordecai broke his hand late in the first half against Iowa. And I can't think of many more difficult spots than number 4 Alabama team that has national championship potential. And all of a sudden you're thrown in there. But certainly it changed the complexion of the game.
Phil Longo did say that in camp. That was the next thing on my little rundown here to ask you. They said, hey, if we got to go with either one of these guys, we're feeling great. I assume that that's lip service to a degree. Do you believe that there's a good amount of truth in there, that they actually like Braden Locke and feel good about his ability to, I don't know, play decent football? It's not like the quarterback play should drop off the map, right?
Well, they like Braden's ability. Phil is the one who went and got him from the transfer portal. On the other hand, there's a reason why they went to the portal for a second consecutive year for a guy that was not going to come in here to sit on the bench.
Sure.
So the thing that everybody will talk about is his knowledge of the offense. It's something that Luke discussed after the game, and the idea that perhaps with him they could do some things differently than they did with Tyler. One of those being maybe play a little more up tempo because of Braden's ability to make checks and reads. But it's not the same. I know it's not a large sample size, but he's played 4.5 games now, and his career completion percentage at Wisconsin is 50%. You have to be better than that, and he knows that. Maybe with an extra week here of the bye week, getting ready for USC, we'll see something a little different, a little bit better. But this is not the spot Wisconsin hoped to be in going into Big Ten play.
No, and I was listening to a little bit of the radio, the post-game broadcast on my drive home on Saturday, and it's like, well, the bye week comes at the right time. It's like, well, I think, anytime you lose players to injury or you get beat around the way that they did, like this team could probably use multiple bye weeks throughout the season at this point. You mentioned Braden Locke playing with pace, and that's something that you wrote about in your story this week. Braden Locke said, I really like that. I really like that on some of our more successful drives, we were moving quicker. We were snapping the ball more quickly. Does that jive with what you think Phil Longo has maybe wanted to do or what Luke Fickell's wanted to do? We've heard from multiple actors about this offense in the last week or so and what this offense should and shouldn't be. What did you make of those comments from Braden Locke and what that means going forward, I guess?
I don't know what they want to do. I don't know what they want to be. I have an idea. Luke wants to retain some of the things that Wisconsin succeeded in for a long time while also modernizing the offense. It just strikes me as can you have both? Can you be super physical, line up in these big packages and stretch the field as much as Phil wants to or as he did in previous stops? I don't know. We really haven't seen them stretch the field a ton. And one of the things that Phil said, going back to even when he was hired, the first time we had a chance to talk to him way back in January 2023, I think I remember asking him, what is your philosophy so people can understand? Stretch defenses horizontally pre-snap, stretch them vertically post-snap, and then let's find ways of getting them the football so that we can watch athletes go be athletes. I don't know that we can say we've seen them try and stretch anybody vertically post-snap. So maybe that's something with a quicker tempo they can try to get to with Braden. They're going to need a strong running game, a strong offensive line. I think they're going to need they're going to need a lot of help to play at the level of football that they want to play at. But this offense and what it looks like is one of the biggest questions that I have about this team and really this program moving forward.
Well, in your story this week, you're answering some big questions about the program. You're pointing out all these statistics on offense. It's like, well, they haven't really created big passing plays. They haven't really done this. They haven't really done that. They're near the bottom in this. It's just like you're looking for one thing, and maybe they find that thing over the bye. And maybe, the middle of the season, it really starts to come together. Maybe it's just taking Fickell a little while longer than we all thought. I don't know. Jesse Temple is here of The Athletic. Let's talk more big picture. I think a lot of people reacted to this game and said, well, it's Bama. What do you expect, right? They don't have the athletes of Bama. This isn't a surprise, and that's fair. I'm just seeing a real lack of progress through 3 weeks. It's like this seems like the same team, the same program it was last year. So big picture, through non-conferences, we go into the bye. What have you seen regarding progress year two? Anything different, anything improved from last year that you can grab onto with Fickell, Longo, with anybody?
This is a tough conversation to have at times because I feel like I've been largely negative here through 3 games, and yet Wisconsin is 2-1. And if you would have asked any fan what you thought their record would be through 3 games, you would have said 2-1. But I keep going back to the way in which Wisconsin has played in those games. 2 closer than expected wins against so-called lesser foes to open the season. And it'd be one thing if you were in the game against Alabama late and they pulled away. They lost by their most points at home in a game in 16 years, since 2008 against Penn State. I know the argument has been made that even the good Wisconsin teams of the recent past would not have beaten that Alabama team, and that's fair. But I think we keep asking this question about progress and where is this team better, and it's hard to say that there are a number of areas. They are 11th in the country in time of possession. I think that is noteworthy, especially when you consider that I believe they were in the 80s in year 1 under Phil Longo. So that's something they're trying to establish. I think the offensive line has been decent. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle because they're not scoring a ton of points. They're not getting big plays. And the work A.J. Blazek, the O-line coach, has done strikes me as something that's worth mentioning. But there just hasn't been enough. And I also realized that Luke has only had 16 games. He hasn't even had 1.5 seasons to try and turn this program around. And it's going to take some time based on where it was when he took over. But I think the angst among the fans are if people want to give him time, they also want to see progress to feel like that time will allow for a better product on the field.
That's perfect, right? I think both of those things can be true. It's still early, yes. But as we are patient, we want to see that patience start to be rewarded a little bit. We want to feel like this is going somewhere. I see a lot of commentary, and you and Zach talked about this in the camp this week, the episode that came out earlier this week. I hear a lot of commentary. It's like, well, Fickell took over a program in disarray. He got here and this was a mess. I think that's a little dramatic. I don't know that the program was in a great spot but it wasn't a catastrophe. I don't think it was a meltdown. You tell me, when you hear comments like, well, Fickle took over a mess, what's fair, what's not fair? How would you put that into proper context as someone who follows this program and has for years now closely?
There are different degrees of messes that you can take over. There are people who take over programs and the coach didn't win a single game, and that program is just an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Wisconsin was in a different place because they had been good, close to great, several seasons for a long time. And then they had taken a step back where they were not close to meeting that so-called championship level aspirations that AD Chris McIntosh talked about. They were not good. I know they went 7-6 in the year that Paul got fired and Jim Leonard took over. They were not a good program. They were not a horrible program, but there was a lot that you had to do to come in and try and close the gap. And obviously it's taking much longer than expected. I've heard comparisons or people trying to make comparisons to when Barry Alvarez took over, and it's just like apples to oranges. I realize now that there are some challenges that Barry didn't have to deal with, because you could develop a player over 4 years and feel confident that you'd still have him, and now you might not. But Wisconsin also wasn't one of the laughing stocks of college football when Luke took over. So, I mean, there's varying degrees, but it was a tough spot. There's no doubt about it. They were going backwards. They needed better players. The teams that they were running, while effective for a long time, were not particularly effective at that time. And so Lucas tried to make changes, and everybody is kind of just waiting among the fan base, waiting and hoping that it will lead to better results in the future.
And maybe we're going to see it in the next 2 or 3 games, and it's going to start to click. It didn't happen week 1, but maybe it happens week 6. That's fine. It's a little bit of a bummer now that they've lost their quarterback, because I'm not really sure how we adjust our expectations, and that sucks. It's going to make it harder to judge where they are, I think. And maybe Locke will figure it out. I don't know, but that's just a bummer. Do you have anything in the works for The Athletic that we can watch for during the bye week, Jesse?
Well, I have a story that published earlier today on 4 of the biggest questions that have emerged through 3 games. Real big picture ones. Obviously, Braden Locke, is he the answer at long-term at quarterback? He's still going to have 2 years of eligibility after this season. Is this even the right offense for Wisconsin? How long will it take to turn this program around? And what does Wisconsin do well? Because I know we touched on that as well. So that's already up. I'll have a mailbag with a lot of fan questions running on Friday. And then obviously next week, jumping back into game week, because Wisconsin will be out in LA in 2 Saturdays to play USC.
The West Coast. Excellent, Jesse. We look forward to all that. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Grant.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you being here. My name is Grant Bills. Twitter at Wisco Grant. If you want to join the show, you can text or call 608-321-1670. Jesse Temple is the best. Appreciate his time. And now he gets a bye week. No game to cover this Saturday. Starting to get ready for USC out in Los Angeles. They announced today that tickets are sold out. We got the joint filled up, the Coliseum filled up. Be interested to see if USC is able to beat Michigan this weekend. And just based on the evidence that we have to go so far this year, the way that Michigan's looked, the way that USC has looked to be much improved, bigger, physical, they just look like a better all-around team, a better coach team. They lost Caleb Williams, but I think the program has leveled up in just about every other place other than maybe quarterback. And Lincoln Riley has proven I can kind of work with any quarterback anyways. It's not like he's been quarterback reliant or overly quarterback needy in his career as a coach. So I think they're a better program. It's amazing a program is allowed to take a step from one year to the next. I would like to see the Badgers do that. We'll follow Jesse's stories over the bye week and obviously when he starts to prepare and to preview USC. AJ in Janesville says, not going to win-loss the whole thing, but I'm seeing one game the rest of the way where Wisconsin is for sure going to be favored, Purdue at home. A few of these coin flip games don't go their way. This could be a very ugly season. Yes, I have nothing more to add to that. It's a great thought, AJ. Thank you. 608-321-1670 to the phones. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Jeff from Chippewa.
Jeff up in Chippewa Falls. Jeff, how are you today?
Good. I was listening to the gentleman from the Atlantic, and I'm just kind of wondering, after the success the Badgers have had the last 25 or so years, I think back to when Michigan hired a new coach and he tried to change the way that they played football. And he lasted a couple of seasons. I'm wondering how long these people, the fans are going to get upset, but in college football, what you've got to worry about is how long are the boosters and the alumni going to wait and give Fickell time?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think, Jeff, we need to strike this balance right now. I think, and I explained this to Pete from Monona, 2 weeks ago, and he just wasn't having it. Like, I am not happy with the status of the program in year 2 under Luke Fickell and Phil Longo and Mike Tressel. It doesn't mean I think they should be fired, right? What's difficult now and what's going to be challenging the rest of the year is they're playing Braden Locke, who's a backup quarterback. Now, they have some investment in Braden Locke. It's a guy that they pursued and wanted to bring in, and they sung his praises during camp when there was a quarterback competition between him and Tyler Van Dyke, although we knew Tyler Van Dyke was going to start all along. He's not their starter, but it's a quarterback that's worthwhile, and it's one they have an investment in. How are we supposed to judge the rest of the season now, knowing that they don't even have their preferred quarterback out there? That's what sucks. You know what I mean? Like, if they were going to make an incremental improvement this year with Tyler Van Dyke, I think that would have been enough for a lot of Badgers fans. Now I don't know what to think. I don't know what to watch for or what to even hope for.
Right. And I was thinking, the Badgers aren't coming up with the old offensive line like they used to either. It seems that's changed. And I don't know if they're looking for more athletic guys rather than the big bruisers that go into the NFL, but
sure.
It doesn't seem like their running game is lacking as well.
I think currently, Jeff, I appreciate that. That's a good call. By the way, there was some freak accident at a fall fest up in Chippewa Falls today. Did I see this correctly? I don't think anyone was. I think there were injuries, but no one was killed. And I only say that because it looked like there was a huge emergency presence. There was helicopters and there was a presence at. I don't remember where the farm was. I was reading about it. I don't know if WEAU had it or I saw it on Twitter earlier today. But I hope everyone's okay up there in Chippewa Falls because that looked scary. I saw injuries, but I didn't see fatalities. So I hope that continues to be the case because those tractor accidents can be, everyone knows someone or something that's gone wrong. Anyways, it's what I thought of, Jeff, and I hope everyone's okay up in Chippewa Falls. You mentioned the boosters and the backers and the people who kind of fund this program and make this program go, this athletic department go. I think there's a lot of blame that's still being placed on Paul Chryst and the position, the place in which he left this program. As I talked about with Jesse, I think some of that is fair, right? I think it's a little unfair when Badgers fans are like, well, Luke Fickell inherited a mess. Okay, a relative mess, maybe. A mess in the grand scheme of things? No. A mess in the grand scheme of Wisconsin football the last 20, 30 years? Okay, sure. Yeah, I think Wisconsin had some issues. Their recruiting department was lacking. I don't know that they were equipped to handle the changes that were coming in college football. So sure, Luke Fickell took over this program in a disadvantaged position. Let's say that. Okay. And maybe we all underestimated how long it would take him to raise the program back up to the heights where it's expected to be from that disadvantaged position. I push back and I to be honest, I reject the idea completely that he inherited a program in disarray, a program in chaos, right? That the cupboard was completely bare. That's not true. Now, the program in Chris' final year was probably in one of the worst spots it's been since Barry Alvarez took over and got that program going. So for Wisconsin standards in this run of the last couple decades of success, sure, they were down. It's not like they were winless in conference play that year. You know what I mean? It's not like the program was a joke nationally. The program was just weaker than we had seen it really in a long time. And that's a testament to the success that Badgers athletics have enjoyed over the last couple of decades. Again, we always need to strike a balance. And I know this doesn't always make for the best sports talk radio. We need to strike a balance between I'm not happy with the job Luke Fickell's done, but I also don't think he should be fired. You strike that balance. You need to strike the balance of, yeah, the program wasn't in the best spot when Luke Fickell took over, but it wasn't a complete and total train wreck and meltdown. Again, striking a balance in the middle. Hour two, more of your calls. The Brewers have won the division. Jordan Love's back at practice, and we're coming off of Jesse Temple. So anything you want to talk about, Kalyn Kahler, ESPN 530, 2-minute update, Zach Heilprin.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers had their starting quarterback back at practice today, 12 days removed from a sprained MCL. Jordan Love practiced for the first time. He was officially listed as a limited participant, and Coach Matt LaFleur hammered that home when asked what Love did in practice, saying he was limited multiple times. As for Love, he was happy to be back out there. Whether he can play on Sunday remains to be seen, especially considering the way he does play, with his escapability being a big part of his game.
You know, at the end of the day, like you said, you just got to be able to protect yourself. It's going to be different, you know what I mean? But like I said before, that's a huge part of my game. And, you know, it's one of those things that it's kind of just in the back of your head. You just kind of react when you're out there, too. So there's not a lot of thought that once I get it back on the field that I'll just be, you know, thinking to protect myself. I'll just be reacting and playing it out.
Love's status for Sunday's road game at Tennessee could be determined over the next couple of days. So, too, will be the statuses of lineman Elton Jenkins and Jordan Morgan, along with wide receiver Jaden Reed. All three were among the guys that did not practice today. Again, it'll be the Packers and Titans on Sunday. Kick is at noon. Turning to the Badgers, they're on their bye week and figuring out how to move forward from the season-ending knee injury to quarterback Tyler Van Dyke. Sophomore Braden Locke going to start in his place. Wisconsin at USC next Saturday to open Big Ten play.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers are NL Central Division champions for a third time in 4 years. That's after the Cubs lost to the A's for a third straight time earlier today. Brewers will be back in action tonight against the Phillies. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Kyle.
So what was Jordan able to do for you today?
He was limited, Bill.
So was he able to do team?
He was limited.
So it's yes or no on team?
He was limited.
In team?
He was limited. Take that however you want.
No, I could care less. I think I got paid the whole time I was there, but I'm more than blessed for the opportunity they've given me. And, that organization, they took a shot on me, Miss Amy, and they did a great job by me.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Appreciate that update from Zach. A lot going on today. Jordan Love back at practice. The Brewers just clinched the Central. And I'm going back and, Jesse, while that interview was playing, I actually went back and looked at every single one of my tweets from February 1st to April 1st because I wanted to see, I wanted to find some of the old predictions, some of the things that we were saying before the season started. And a lot of it was me just yelling about Badger basketball. So the exercise was not as productive as I hoped it would be. I just think that it's funny that so many baseball people talk themselves into the Reds. The Reds. Can you imagine saying, hey, I'm an expert and I want to stake my reputation to thinking the Reds are ever going to figure it out? Right? Or the Pirates. I don't think there are a lot of people that pick the Pirates. I don't know why people pick the Cubs. So the team that wasn't good enough last year and didn't really do much to improve. I mean, they brought back Bellinger. Michael Busch was awesome. Imanaga was awesome. Not that it mattered. They still weren't even close in the division. Those who picked the Cardinals, I kind of get it, but the Brewers have just proven to be a stable, steady, reliable commodity over the last couple of years, and they showed it again this year. I mean, they led the division, not wire to wire, but I think since the beginning of May, really once we got a month into the season, they just took first place and never looked back. Really, really impressive. Another piece of news today, 60 seconds, then I'll come to the phones if you're on hold, I promise. Woj is retiring, which is kind of cool. Woj is like, I don't want to do this anymore. He's going to go work for his alma mater in their basketball department or on their basketball staff, St. Bonaventure, which I cool. Good for Woj. His statement was basically like, yeah, we have limited time on this earth. I want to do something else. I'm like, cool, man. Good for you. The one part that's kind of grossed me out a little bit, and I didn't know how to word this into a tweet. So I've been trying to, when I have a take, when I have a thought that I don't think is going to read well on Twitter, I'll just say it on the show. It doesn't have to be tweeted. So I'll say it on the show now. All day today, ESPN was kind of celebrating Woj, their afternoon show, and they were celebrating him, and Woj wasn't on. I think Woj just wants to be done. But you know who is more than happy and more than willing to go on and talk about, oh, Woj, it's such a hard job being an insider. You have to be on your phone all the time. And, oh, my God, you could never unplug. You know who had no problem doing that was Adam Schefter. And it's just, it rubbed me wrong to have him be on the air. It's like, I understand why he doesn't want to do this job anymore. I do the job. I get it. Here's a million reasons why my job is really hard. Just pleasuring himself. I'm elite. I do this job. Woj didn't want to do it anymore. Here's why it's so hard and challenging. I'm like, this is just kind of gross. So if you go and you watch any of the Schefter clips today, it's just kind of gross. Maybe I'm the only one who's rubbed wrong by that, but that's just kind of like, I don't know. It just, Schefter kind of felt like he kind of made it about him. And to Woj's credit, for the last year or so, it felt like he was really only tweeting news, any article that he wrote, or any podcast he did. Schefter will farm engagement off anything. He's always tweeting about this, that, or the other thing. And he's all over ESPN today. Oh, the job is I'm so happy for him. He doesn't have to do this hellish job anymore. It's like, oh my God. Just rubbed me wrong. That's it. All right. I can't imagine many of you have thoughts on that. I feel like I'm a little bit of in a unique camp with that take. But if you want to talk about the Brewers, the Packers, the Badgers, more than happy to take your call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Clemhead Mike.
Clemhead. What's going on today up in Chippewa Falls?
Well, I looked up that accident. It was a couple of hay wagons.
Yeah.
Colliders, like a dozen people hurt. Nobody was killed. Yeah, it's
okay.
Sounds kind of serious though. But,
there was a helicopter. There was a huge presence there, which
Yeah.
is why I think news stations originally picked it up.
Yeah, I hope everybody's okay out there. But yeah, a couple of things. Yeah, I really, really, really hope the Brewers don't lose tonight, because if they lose after clinching the division, it feels like backing in. You know, can you imagine them celebrating, drinking champagne and spraying champagne on each other and smoking cigars after losing a game? There's one game the Brewers have to win this year. It's this one. Come on, I just can't stand the visual of watching the Brewers celebrate after losing a game. So
tonight feels like a must-win now, kind of, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I would hate that. And the second thing I want to bring up is, if Jordan Love is hurting at all, just set him down. I mean, it's the Titans. I don't want to risk his career. I don't want to risk the rest of the season.
Right.
And I don't think that they should take a chance. So I think they should sit him. And also I want to thank Craig Counsell for winning another division title for the Brewers. Thank you, Craig. You know how much you and I don't like Craig. So this is right in his face. So I appreciate that, Craig.
Yeah, I appreciate the Cubs getting that done today. Weirdly, half of me was kind of rooting for the Cubs, because win or lose, no matter what the Cubs did this afternoon, the Brewers were still going to have a chance to clinch the division tonight with a win. So
yeah.
I was kind of hoping, in a weird way, that the Cubs would win. And clinching a playoff spot's not a bad thing. This isn't I was just kind of hoping maybe the Cubs would win and then the Brewers would win tonight, and it would be more celebratory. There would be a little bit more intrigue to tonight's game. And tonight's game is still important. It's the series, and you're chasing the Phillies in the standings for a potential bye week in the first round of the playoffs, or a bye series in the first round of the playoffs, but lost a little bit of the luster. But they're in the playoffs, so I'm not going to complain, Clemhead. I don't think anybody should complain.
Please don't back in. Please don't back in the playoffs, Brewers. Please.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Clemhead. I appreciate it. And I'm not as worried about them backing in this year, because again, there's a first round bye on the line. They're very much in the mix with the Phillies, especially if they win tonight. And who knows? The Dodgers lose a couple games. Like, I think the Dodgers have the Rockies twice in the final week, because of course they do. I'm not gonna claim small market bias with the scheduling. It's just interesting. That's it. And the Brewers didn't beat the Rockies up enough when they played them, so they had their chances to beat up on the Rockies too. It's just okay, whatever. Yeah, 6 games against the Rockies in the final 2 weeks against the Dodgers. Just interesting. I'm just here to point things out. I'm not crying anything. I'm not claiming anything. I'm just pointing it out. Can a man not describe the schedule? Can a man not present details to the listeners of a radio show? Come on. It does feel a little bit like a must-win tonight now for the Brewers. I'll feel a lot better, and the celebration will feel a lot better if they win tonight. But they saw some clips of the locker room earlier today. They were, high-fiving, but they certainly weren't jumping up and down. And why would they be? This was kind of inevitable. And this team, let's face it, for better or worse, is kind of used to winning the division. And that takes a little bit of the luster away from winning the division, but I'd rather keep winning the division. I think it's a good problem to have. It's business as usual. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Hot Take Jake. Let me talk to you, Grant.
What's up, Hot Take?
First things first. Great on the Brewers. I'm going to go to negative town here in a minute, but I need to start with positive thoughts because they deserve it. I'm not sure many people had them winning the division this year. I didn't have them as a playoff team, and this is kind of just what they do. Like, they are just masters of player development, and they are the definition of next man up. You lose the good player, the next guy steps in, and they just continue to do it. And again, why I contend that Mark Attanasio is a top 5 owner in sports when you consider everything working against him. Now, can I just go to negative town?
Yes, I was going to say, I don't know how to feel about that Attanasio take. I'll think about it. Let's put a pin in that and move on. What's your next point?
Sure. The Brewers, you can do something tonight that would make me so proud. And that is do nothing. Win the game, lose the game, whatever. Don't pop champagne. It's so stupid. It's one of the dumbest things in sports when every single year, like, imagine back in the Herb Cole days of the Bucks, we clinch a playoff spot and we're popping champagne. And I don't understand why in baseball they're the only ones that do this. They're children. Not only
because it's what you do, because it's what you do. Like that's what you do in baseball. I think, Hot Take, to your point, I think there's a right way. I think there's a right way to celebrate and pop champagne, but also keep the main thing, and that's on the leaders and the veterans of the team and on the managers. but they're allowed to pop champagne. You know what I mean? Like nobody punch a wall, please and thank you. So I get what you're saying spiritually. That it's champagne, it's symbolic, and that's what you do in baseball.
No, but like, why? Like, it's another one of those reasons why baseball is just kind of dumb. Like, well, we're gonna pop champagne. Why? Well, because we always do. Well,
It's a bad take.
That's
a bad take. Because it's cool.
No way. Think about the Black Mamba, right?
Sure.
When they asked him about going up, I think 2-0 in the finals, and he just sat there, straight face and said, "What's there to be happy about? The job's not done. Brewers, I've seen you do this now, okay? I'm really, really happy for you. But when you pop champagne, you look stupid. And then, to top it all off, each successive playoff win, you pop champagne again."
It's what you do. I guess hot take Jake, I don't have a great answer for you. That's a good call. There's some good points in there. It's just what you do. Baseball is unique like that. There's things that players do in baseball that you don't do in other sports. And I guess I wish I had a good retort to you on the Kobe Bryant thing. I don't. I think there's a right way to celebrate a division championship for a team like the Brewers, right? Like, I want them to celebrate and I want them to cherish this accomplishment. And I think Pat Murphy, like Craig Counsell last year, will hammer home the accomplishment of what they pulled off. But I think you got to move on quickly and understand that this is just one small goal. I think at certain points this year, I don't know if it was Pat Murphy. Who did I say? Andrew Wagner was on Bill's show earlier today. And he was talking, I believe, what Pat Murphy has said in the last couple weeks. Winning the division is a goal. It's not the goal. It's a goal on their way to the next goal and the next goal and the next goal, which is eventually the World Series, right? So I think there's a right way to celebrate, and that can include champagne. That can include all the bells and whistles and all the fanfare that baseball always includes, right? There's not a problem with that. But if everyone gets blackout drunk and Devin Williams punches a wall and they're never able to like focus and play well again the rest of the regular season, like, yeah, I would agree with you there. I don't want them to blow their load on one celebration on a day where they didn't even have to win to make it happen, to boot. But it's an accomplishment. Baseball seasons are long. I think that's another thing, that's different from football. It's different from basketball. Basketball is a long season. There's a lot of games, but baseball is every day. And it's from all the way in February when pitchers and catchers report. And if you're going deep into the playoffs, it goes all the way into October. Like, it goes forever. And I think in baseball, more than other sports, you need to celebrate the steps to success. You need to celebrate the victories on your way to the victories. And popping champagne when you win a division after playing, what are they at, like 145 games, 150 games? Like, yes, you celebrate that. You absolutely celebrate that. There's a right and wrong way to do it. So I appreciate you making the point, hot take Jake. I won't go all the way and meet you where you're at. It's like, we just shouldn't do champagne. That's one of the coolest things in sports, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And that I would agree with. Adam says, can they pop sparkling grape juice today? Yeah, you can drink, but you can't drink booze. Although Jackson Cherry, I'm not really sure the workaround there. AJ in Janesville says, traditionally way harder to make the baseball playoffs than basketball, thus the elaborate celebration. Not as hard anymore, but like you said, it's what you do in baseball. And maybe that's a problem. Maybe that's why baseball is, slowly but surely becoming more of a regionalized niche sport, is because it's based on history and it's based on, well, we do these things because we've always done them. Maybe that's a problem of baseball, and I'm not totally numb to that idea. I'm not closed off to that idea, but spraying champagne and partying in the clubhouse, like, this dudes rock. Why would you have a problem with that? Hot take Jake. Jay Krebs says, I've been saying Mark is a top 3 owner in baseball for years. He holds his front office accountable. Follow up with a text with what you mean by that. I'm willing to talk about Mark Attanasio and the success that he's stewarding. I think the mark of a good owner, or the mark of a top dog, whether it's president of baseball ops or a president, CEO like Mark Murphy, or even a head coach, I think the key to running a successful organization in the long term, not just doing what some teams have done, and that's build it up, tear it down, build it up, tear it down, right? In smaller spurts. The Brewers are trying to do this thing every year and give themselves a shot every year, which I think is as good of a bet as any other to win the World Series in Milwaukee. I've said that. I don't think there is an easy way or a simple way to win a World Series in Milwaukee. It's going to take some breaks. It's going to take some leaps of faith. It's going to take a lot. And I don't know that there's one path that's better than the other. I think the Brewers could tear it up, build it down, and that gives them a shot at a World Series. I think they could do the sustained success bites of the apple thing. I think that gives them a chance at a World Series. Neither chance is great. But if the tiebreaker is, wow, my team can be good every year instead of just every 8 years, oh, well, I'll take the good team every year, please. Especially in this job. You kidding me? When I got to go all the months through the summer talking about Wisconsin sports every day, selfishly, yeah, I'll take the sustained success. I think the chance at winning a World Series eventually is the same anyways. I think the key, to go back to my original point of Mark Attanasio doing what he's done, is always have a guy behind the guy. Always. To have a Pat Murphy behind Craig Counsell, to have a Chris Hook behind a Derek Johnson, to have a Matt Arnold behind a David Stearns. Just always bringing guys in and bringing them up behind the guy that you believe to be really good in the event that he leaves, in the event that he retires, in the event of whatever, right? And you can't sustain success in the sport unless you can sustain excellence at all the positions required to win baseball games. And I think Mark and the Brewers leadership have done a really good job of that. Now, who's behind Rick Schlesinger? I don't know. That's another position we need to be worried about. I hear the parking is actually going very smoothly. Rick's going to be on with Bill tomorrow. Well, one call, then we'll take a break. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. This is Ben here in Eau Claire.
Ben in Eau Claire. What's up, Ben?
Hey, so you're good with the baseball celebration for the Brewers. I guess I don't know this, but I would be curious, do other teams that have been there done that before? Do they celebrate like the Brewers do over winning the division?
I would say yes. Yes. I don't know that to be true. Okay. Let me text our friend Kurt Hogue because he can confirm or deny that. But yes, everybody does it. Everyone in baseball does it.
Of the spraying champagne in the locker rooms and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's baseball.
I think it's really weird. But I understand, I guess baseball has different norms than other sports.
Why do you think it's weird? You just think it's over the top?
Way over the top.
Okay.
Congratulations, winning the division. There's an accomplishment there, but it's ultimately, it shouldn't even be a part of what the ultimate goal is. It's just another step for you to get there. And it seems way over the top, but it just also seems like, hey, at the end of the day, if you go into the playoffs and you lose right away, I mean, it's cool that you won a division title and you can have a T-shirt that says Central Division Champs 2024, but I guess I don't really know what else.
What'd you say your name was one more time? Just help me remember.
Ben
up in Eau Claire. Okay. Ben, I appreciate that call. Thank you. I guess I just assumed everyone thought spraying champagne is awesome because I think spraying champagne is awesome. Now, Ben, I don't want to speak for you. I don't want to speak for Hot Take Jake. I think I might need to remind everyone that the Brewers went from the early 80s to the 2010s in between division titles. Like, it's easy to sit here today and say it's not a big deal. And I don't think Hot Take Jake and Ben, I don't think you were poo-pooing an accomplishment. You said it's a great accomplishment. It is. But man, how spoiled have we become as Brewers fans where we're speaking out, and Hot Take Jake, look, it's in his name. We're speaking out against the Brewers celebrating. There's a right and a wrong way to do it, but it's a 162-game season. They won the division. It's a huge accomplishment. It's not the goal. It's one of the goals, as Pat Murphy said. I'm going to go try to find that comment from Andrew Wagner from Bill's show earlier today. Let's take a 3-minute break. Continue to take your calls. I'll refresh some Packers points that we haven't made since the early part of the 4 o'clock hour as well. Kalyn Kahler, ESPN, coming up at 5:35 as well. You don't want to miss that.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Hope you're having an awesome Wednesday evening. My name is Grant Bills. Twitter at Wisco Grant. You can call or text the show 608-321-1670. Kalyn Kahler, ESPN, going to join us after our next break. I was able to go and find a little bit of this audio from Andrew Wagner's appearance with Bill earlier today. Just talking about, well, you have this party looming, right? You guys have known that you're going to clinch the division. It's not really new. It's been in the bag for a while. How are you going to handle the celebration? How are you, like, you want to celebrate, it's an accomplishment, but how are you, especially with a younger team, how are you guys going to handle this? This was his answer, and he cites an exchange that he had with Pat Murphy, the media did last night.
What Murphy said last night, what really stood out, Adam McKelvey asked, you got this big party looming on the horizon. Well, what do you do from there? And he said, well, I'm hoping that these guys look at it and realize this is a great learning opportunity. You're seeing Philadelphia's 3 best pitchers and their bullpen right now. And chances are you're going to see them again in 2 weeks. You better be paying attention. And you're going to see another team this weekend that you might see in a week or two. You better be paying attention because you've got an opportunity here to do something really special. And it's lining up perfect. Yeah, this schedule is brutal right now. But at the same time, this is the best possible situation because you're seeing teams you're going to have to go up against again if you want to get to where you think you might be able to go. It's kind of like those years the Packers seem to play Detroit in the regular season finale and the first round of the playoffs every single year. I think there was like 3 straight years they did that. You get a chance to see the guys you're going up against. You might lose these games, but you can take away lessons and be like, okay, here's how this guy's going to pitch me. Here's what this guy's got. Here's what this fastball looks like. Here's what this breaking ball looks like. It sounds like a loser's lament, but really, if you step back and look at it, that's what it is. It's a chance to learn to take the next step. And I think that's exactly how Pat Murphy is looking at it. And I truly believe that's how his guys are looking at it right now.
So I think that's a good way of looking at these games. They do have one more game against the Phillies tonight. Then the Diamondbacks, a team that they could absolutely see in the postseason again. And then they wrap up the regular season next weekend with the Mets. And if the postseason started today, they would be playing the Mets, I believe, unless that switched last night. It might have switched, maybe. But the point is 3 very realistic opponents. If not for round 1, then possibly round 2 or beyond if the Brewers were to advance. We got time for 2 calls. We have 2 callers on hold. I'll take you, and then we'll get to Kalyn Kahler at the bottom of the hour here. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. It's Uncle Packer.
What's up, Uncle Packer? What's going on?
I'm just excited about the rest of the season. I think tonight's game is a really important game. I think they need to beat this team. It's the first time for a long time I kind of wanted to see the Cubs win, and I wanted them to go in and take this game tonight. But I still want them to go in and take it. I want them to show that they can. I really want them to go in with a lot of confidence. You know what? We don't have any big name pitchers except Fastball Freddie, who's kind of now like find him Freddie sometimes. I just really would like to. Savali is good. I really like the two guys we brought on. With Savali
Montas has been excellent, and I'll put my hand up. I didn't see that coming.
Me neither. I like our pitching with our rookie with Tobias Myers. I'm really excited. I'm happily pleased, and I just hope it doesn't crumble down. I'm wearing blue and gold glasses every day. I think tonight is a good game, and the rest of the season. I would love this. I would love a bye, but it might be where we're going to play the Mets, and then if things don't change, we might play the Mets right after that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we got to come into this with wide awake and a quick tape on the Brewers. Back to the Packers. With Matt LaFleur, I like Matt LaFleur as a coach, but I don't believe a word he says. Especially when it's like, is he practicing? He's such a sly dog. He doesn't want to say anything.
He's limited. He's limited, Uncle Packer. How many times do you need to hear that at the beginning of the show? He's limited.
There's a 10% chance he might play, and there's a 10% chance he might not, and we don't know until the 2 minutes before the game. He's not going to say anything. We have no idea.
Well, and I think at this point we have no idea, other than Jordan Love's injuries progressing, I think, as good as we could have hoped for when he went down in Brazil. Uncle Packer, I appreciate the call. I'm interested to see the challenge of preparing with two quarterbacks. Either might play this weekend. Now, maybe Matt LaFleur deep down knows who's going to play, and maybe he's told the quarterbacks that and said, hey, here's how we're going to go about the week. We're going to give you some reps. Maybe they know. Maybe there's no uncertainty, but I just think both guys could use the reps. Malik Willis has been here less than a month. He could absolutely use the reps. Jordan Love played in one game, a little bit of time in the preseason, but nothing significant. He could use the reps. Both guys could use the reps. So how those reps are going to be divvied up and how the rest of the week is going to be attacked, I'm interested to watch and see how that plays out. One more call, then we're going to take our break. Wisco Sports Show. Hello, who's this? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, good. Welcome. Who's this?
My name is Matthew. I'm 48 years old, and I'm very happy about this. I'm thinking about, I was very young when they went to the 1982 World Series, and I remember when Gorman Thomas struck out to Suter, and I remember when we went to CC in 08, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to jump up to 18 when we took the Dodgers to the NLCS, and we lost in 7 games. And now here we are. I have talked to a lot of Brewers fans at work and online throughout the season, and a lot of people don't like the sport of baseball. I think it's boring, but I will say this. I have a lot of faith that they're going to do something with this accomplishment, and I hope they don't screw it up. That's basically all I want to say. What do you say?
You hope they don't screw it up. God, that's good. I think that's a great take. I hope they don't screw it up as well. I like how you referenced, this is how old I am. I remember 82. You notice there how he jumped from 1982 to 2008? Nothing in between? I think Brewers fans, we gotta check our privilege just a little bit when we poo-poo the need for celebration, or we poo-poo the idea that spraying champagne isn't worthwhile and this accomplishment isn't worth celebrating. Yeah, it's one of the goals. It's not the goal. It's a step on the way to the main thing. But I think that was a good bit of perspective, that last call, and I appreciate it. Let's take a break. Kalyn Kahler going to join us, ESPN, to talk about some of her quarterback-related reportings over the last couple of weeks. Excited to get her back on the show. That's coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The football has started, but training camp isn't over. It's training camp for the season that really matters. Oktoberfest season at the La Crosse Beer House. Prepare your appetizer game with pig wings or a 24-ounce pretzel to share with the squad. Main course drills include locally made brats and amazing batter fried fish. Wrap up your training with the best selection of German beers in the area. Oktoberfest won't know what hit it when you complete your training camp at the La Crosse Beer House. corner of 3rd and Pearl, downtown La Crosse.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
So what was Jordan able to do for you today?
He was limited, Bill.
So was he able to do team?
He was limited.
So it's yes or no on team.
He was limited.
In team?
He was limited. Take that however you want.
Really enthralling Matt LaFleur press conference earlier today. Jordan Love's back at practice, but that's about, as you heard, that's about all we know. So if we learn anything tomorrow on Friday as practice throughout the week continues, obviously keep you updated. If you missed some of the calls and some of the Matt LaFleur audio from earlier on in the show, just find it in the podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you get the drill. It'll go up just after 6 o'clock. By the way, the Bill Michaels Huddle coming up in about 20 minutes. I almost forgot about that. I gotta get ready for that. I think Bill's broadcasting outside tonight, he said. Joining us now, friend of the network. She was on with Bill, Speak of the Devil, last week. Kalyn Kahler, who's now at ESPN, writes a lot of really interesting stories. You first came on our network when you wrote that story about Aaron Rodgers' hand signals, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
You described your niche. You had a really good way of describing the beat that you were on. Do you happen to remember? It was so clever. I can't remember what it was.
No. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, you did hand signals. You have a podcast series right now about Kabir Bajaj-Biamila, which we talked about last week. That's really interesting. And now about insurance policies. How would you describe the role or the beat that you're on at ESPN?
Well, I'm a national reporter, so I don't have to cover one team. So that's like not the fun way to describe it. But I think I'm interested in, like, I don't know how I would have described it 2 years ago, but like I'm interested in like little things that I think other people know about and overlook. Not necessarily overlook, but just don't think are that interesting. Like hand signals is a good example. Insurance, which I just wrote about today, is a good example. Things that like people know exist and are not really that novel of concepts, like insurance. Okay, we all have insurance. Like I just actually was like really annoyed this week because I'm on a new policy and I have no idea what my deductible is, and I'm paying for things that I didn't know I was paying for. And anyways, I had to figure that out. I don't even know how to log into my insurance provider, so I had to figure that out today. But when it comes to the NFL, the insurance that I wrote about today is actually a way to buy cap space. And it only works to buy the cap space if you have an injury, which nobody wants. But if you have insured, if you're a club and you insure a portion of your player's contract and that player does miss games, and it just depends on what your deductible is, if you're going to see a claim or not. You can, pay for an expensive policy for 2 games. You could pay for an expensive policy where they need to miss 8 at least for it to start paying out. But anyways, if your player misses games and you've insured a portion of their contract, whatever you get in insurance proceeds, you get that check for the insurance company, you give it to the league office at the end of the year, and you get the same amount back in cap space as a credit for the following season. So there's a couple Packers ties to this story. One is Aaron Rodgers, because Green Bay actually has been a long-time insurance customer, which is, I think, good news for Packers fans, because it means that your front office is smart. It means that your front office is taking all of these things into account and doing everything they can to secure the team's future. So anyways,
it does seem to fit the Packers, like old school. They wear khakis. It tracks. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it also doesn't, because you kind of think like teams have to spend their own money on this. Like, this is not, when you buy a premium, it doesn't count against the salary cap, which is good. And that's why it's like buying cap space, because you're spending money on something that doesn't count to your cap. But if it does apply to you, it's a credit to your cap the following year. But it requires owners to make the decision that spending $1 to $2 million on a player's premium for a significant amount of guaranteed money, like a quarterback contract, you're going to be spending anywhere between $1 to $4 million on a premium to insure a portion of your quarterback's guaranteed money. So anyways, you have to have an owner who wants to do that. And for smaller market, family-owned teams, they may be less inclined. However, Green Bay is publicly owned, so there's more than one person who gets to make that decision, I guess. Yeah, you're like, raise my hand. I'm an owner.
I am an owner. I did not have a say in whether or not we bought insurance, but I am one of the many. Yes.
But I got on a tangent. What I was going to say is, okay, so there's 2 Packers ties to this. Rodgers. When they traded Aaron Rodgers, the Packers had an insurance premium, a policy on Aaron Rodgers and his contract. So when they traded that contract to the Jets, it was in there. There was a policy in there. The Jets transferred. Well, it doesn't transfer unless the Jets decide they're going to start paying for the premium, because the Jets renegotiated the contract. But it was already in there. A policy existed. He's 39 years old. He doesn't have a huge extensive injury history, but he's old. So it seems like a smart thing to do. And the Jets decided, you know what? We're not doing it. And they didn't really even return calls from some of the insurance brokers. I had an industry source say that multiple brokers reached out to them and they weren't even engaging in a conversation. Like, you can negotiate a policy down if you want to. You could get a cheaper price by insuring less of the money, but they just decided to completely go without it. So that's the first Packers tie. And then we know what happened to Aaron. Aaron gets hurt, misses the whole year. And I didn't see the details of the policies that were shopped to the Jets, but Sportico, I think, did, or they had more information. And last fall, Sportico reported that the Jets missed out on $22 million, up to $22 million in insurance proceeds. And that would have gone straight to their cap for this season. And then the second Green Bay tie is, Matt LaFleur doesn't want to talk about what Jordan Love did or did not do in practice today. But Jordan Love, the good news is he is insured. The Packers have a policy on him. They are insuring, I believe, up to $74 million of his deal this season. So that means I don't know what their deductible is, so that's unknown. But if he misses enough games for whatever their deductible is, it could be 4 games, it could be 2 games, it could be 6, it could be 8. If he misses enough games consecutively, the Packers will start getting insurance money paid out to them. They're not going to get a full check for $74 million, but it's basically a math equation of, like, you take $74 million. How many years is his contract? I don't know off the top of my head, but let's say it's 5 years. Is it 5? Is it 7?
I think it's 4 or 5. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Whatever the years he is on that contract, you take the $74 million, you divide it by the seasons, then you divide that by the number of games, 17. And then whatever that number is, that's going to be like the per game payout, roughly. So if they hit the deductible with Jordan, which I don't think they will, honestly, it sounds like he's doing things and it sounds like he's going to be back.
He's coming along. I don't know that it means he's going to play this weekend, but it's going to be way better than we all thought that it maybe was going to be when he went down in Brazil. Yeah.
Right. But so the good news is for Packers fans is if it's worse than we think it is, and he misses a significant amount of games, likely the team will get insurance proceeds and that will apply to next year's cap. So, like, an example I have in the story that I think is helpful to understand why this is important. Well, actually, I could pull up Jordan Love's contract right here and see.
It's 4 years, $220 million.
Okay, but what I'm interested in is what percentage of the cap is he at the most? Like, let's see.
In his most expensive year.
Yeah. Okay, so his most expensive year, the last year, he's 14%. That's not crazy, but like Dak Prescott, the deal that Dak Prescott just signed, next year, he accounts for 30% of the Cowboys' salary cap. So that's insane. And so if something were to happen to him and he misses a season, he misses more than a season, if you don't have insurance, your salary cap is absolutely in a terrible place for the next few years because you're paying him and he's not playing, right? So this is a way, now that there's so much more guaranteed money in quarterback contracts in particular, this is a way for teams to make sure that they are not absolutely dead in the salary cap if something were to happen to this quarterback that is eating up so much of the cap.
So I first saw this story this morning and I saw the thumbnail or the picture for the story, and it was Aaron Rodgers limping off the field. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't remember whose tweet, if it was yours or if it was from an ESPN or an NFL by ESPN account, whatever. The title was like a rabbit hole in the NFL that no one knows about. And with Aaron Rodgers in the picture, I'm like, this could literally be, I don't know what's written about. It could be anything. I'm like, oh, okay. So insurance, which no one ever talks about. And I'm like, well, I listen to sports talk basically all day, every day. It's my job. Like, how has this never come up? Like, I've never even heard anyone mention it. And then I'm reading your story and you have multiple sources talk about, well, teams don't talk about it because the smart teams feel like it's an edge to have insurance. So why would they brag about it and let the other teams in on it? And you also say that there's only 2 real brokers that do insurance and there's only a fixed number of buyers. So who are they going to promote it to? I just thought that was interesting. It's the secret process and product that no one ever talks about. And I guess it makes sense why.
Yeah. And like, I wanted to talk to 2 teams in particular, the Niners and the Eagles, because they are known, they have a reputation league-wide as being the teams that people will call their salary cap staff and general managers like evil geniuses. That's kind of a term that's thrown around. I don't know that they're evil, but they're certainly geniuses in in an interesting way because they do a lot of these like loophole trying to find a way around the salary cap, because the NFL has a hard salary cap, but also a soft salary cap, which means, you know, you can push things into later years. You can structure salary into per game roster bonuses instead of paragraph 5 salary, meaning if you're not on the active roster, you're not making that salary. So that's a way sometimes for teams to get around the cap too. But I wanted to talk to the Eagles. I wanted to talk to the Niners, and both teams would not comment on the record for this. The Eagles are really interesting because they have at least 16 players that they have insurance policies on, which is, I don't know. I can't say for certain it's the most of any other team, but I'm pretty sure that it is because there's no database tracking this, which makes it really difficult to report on and to like know what's going on, because like the league doesn't have a database, the NFLPA doesn't. Teams are not required to submit the policies to anyone. So it's really the only people with the policies are the clubs and the brokers, and they are involving medical records for the most part because, you know, it's about, you know, you're insuring for injury or illness. So a lot of it is HIPAA violations if they were to be shared. So these things are kept very quiet. And then one club executive that I was talking to was like, yeah, we don't even talk about it within our own front office because if the information were to get out, like with somebody who doesn't really know what they're talking about, like even someone who works for my team, like if they don't know, if they don't understand the complexities of the policy, it could, you know, be damaging. Like I guess, you know, the way I kind of interpreted that was that if it were to leak, like, oh, this team has an insurance policy for this amount on their player, like, well, do they think he's going to get injured? Like, what does that mean necessarily? Sure. And then it does sometimes come out, like, before I wrote this story, when Tua got hurt, obviously last week he left the game with a concussion. He's now on IR. Based off of his concussion history, there was a lot of speculation of, is he going to play football again? What happens if he doesn't? What does Miami have to pay him if he doesn't come back, if he's not cleared to return? How does this work? So there were a few people who were tweeting that, you know, or reporting that Miami has an insurance policy on Tua, which they do. But the interesting thing there is oftentimes players' injury history is taken into account when a team is taking out an insurance policy on them, because
so just like anything, just any other policy.
It's like you could compare it to like buying a house on a floodplain. Like you're not going to be insured. No one's going to want to insure your house for floods because it's likely going to happen. So the insurers don't want to take on that risk. So I don't have direct knowledge of the Dolphins policy on Tua, but I did talk to two insurance industry sources who have a lot of experience working with the carriers, who are the ones taking on the risk for this money, like the Lloyd's of London type of insurance carriers.
That's a name that I had heard of, but I knew of that name because players will take out policies on themselves, not necessarily teams on a contract.
Yeah, and that's very common. But so I had two sources who said they don't know what's in his policy. They have not seen it, but they said based off of their experience working in this space for a long time, they would expect that concussions would be excluded from that policy, which would mean that the Dolphins insurance policy on Tua, if this is true, again, I don't have direct knowledge. I want to be clear. I don't have direct knowledge of the policy, but based off of experts, they think it's likely that their policy on Tua's contract would not cover concussions, which is really interesting because then that means Tua's playing contract secures him for any injury. So if he were to never be cleared to play again, he would get the money guaranteed to him. I think it's like $167 million in his contract from the Dolphins. But on the Dolphin side of things, it could be, it's not for certain that their insurance policy is going to cover any injury, is going to cover these concussions. So,
well, and what's wild is, and some people talk about this in sports talk, I'm not a huge contract. Like when I need to learn stuff, I'll learn stuff. But what I don't fully understand, what I don't think a lot of people understand is when you fully guarantee money to a player in a contract, if it's a legitimate ironclad guarantee, not a roster, but even if it's like in a formal guarantee or close to guarantee doesn't count. But if you guarantee money, that money is in escrow somewhere. Like that money has to be physically available. Right. And the owner, so when you're talking about insurance policies, like we think these teams and these owners could never run out of money in the case of something happening like this. And I think it's unlikely, but it's not as crazy and as far-fetched as I think some people realize.
Yeah. And I think these insurance policies with the corresponding cap relief, if you are going to get insurance credit, I think that makes owners feel more comfortable in handing out bigger contracts. And, you know, as we've seen, every quarterback contract essentially gets bigger than the one before it. So it's a really interesting strategy. And for now, it's completely legal for teams to do this. And it's really hard to even like have a sense of like, well, how is this really helping any of these teams? But the Niners, I think I'll just give one more example of the Niners. I think this is the best like concrete example of how, if you do have bad injury luck, how this can be helpful to your team. Because again, you can't get the cap space unless you had an insurance claim payout, which means the player got hurt. So 2020 Niners, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, D Ford got hurt, and third player, George Kittle, got hurt. They all missed a significant number of games. The team had insurance policies on all three of those players. The following year, their end of year cap adjustment number, which includes a bunch of different things like contract incentives that they didn't pay, but inside that number is insurance credit. They had $11 million in insurance credit going into 2021. And it's really important for that year. That was the most of any team by like 6 million. The next team I think had 5 million. But it was super important for that year because the cap decreased by 15 million that year for the first time ever because of the COVID loss from the year before. So
rolled over for them. They actually,
yes. So they actually barely experienced a loss when most of the other NFL teams are having to make cuts and really feeling the cinching of the belt there that year. The Niners were able to basically maintain their roster because they had come out of the year with almost the same deficit.
Well, and that's so Niners too, because we view them, and now they've stabilized a little bit, but for years they were either like NFC Championship game, Super Bowl, or bottoming out and getting a draft pick. And that's just another version of like, I don't know, the way the pendulum swung with the Niners from year to year and how they would go from being down, but then everything would swing back, whether it was a draft pick or an insurance number hitting their cap. Well, that's interesting. I could talk about this longer. I really enjoyed reading your story today. I appreciate the time. And anytime you write a story about Rodgers being weird or a former Packer being a religious leader, like, we are more than happy to have you on our network. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Kalyn Kahler. And I'm going to go back, by the way, and find the last time you came on to talk about Rodgers, because you had such a good way of describing your role. And it's going to
please remind me because I need to be refreshed on that too.
That's clever. Thank you, Kalyn. Have an awesome night.
Thank you.
Kalyn Kahler, ESPN. Appreciate her time. That was very interesting. Maybe something that, like she said, has Packers connections and can affect our team. Maybe that wasn't something you were interested in. She's really gracious with our network. Anytime she writes a story that has any sort of Packers connection to, he's like, hey, more than happy to come on. If you want me, I'll come on, help you fill a segment and talk about my story. And I'm like, this insurance thing is just really interesting. So again, maybe some of you weren't into it. That's fine. Not everything's going to be for everyone. That's more than okay. Bill Michaels Huddle coming up in about 10 minutes. We'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show. Final thoughts on the Brewers and Jordan Love returning to practice. That's coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show got about 90 seconds left. Then we'll turn things over to the big unit, the Bill Michaels Huddle, coming up, where he's certainly going to react to the return of Jordan Love to practice today and hear from Matt LaFleur, hear from others who spoke today. So the Bill Michaels Huddle timed very conveniently tonight in the point of the week where Jordan Love is returning, but also gives a chance to Bill to react to some of the comments from coaches and players he didn't have a chance to react to earlier today because he was off the air before they took place. You're also going to hear an interview with Mark Schofield, SB Nation. He joins the network every Wednesday. He is excellent and is always taking a look around the league and what's going on. Hey, before I get out, I'm doing a really bad job reminding folks about this, but next Friday in La Crosse, for our WKTY listeners or for anyone who might be willing to make a short drive or a long drive, come to Oktoberfest in La Crosse. We will be there on Friday. We're going to get there Thursday night to get ready, but Friday morning starting at 6 a.m. at Flipside on the north side, just across from Menards, right up the way. It's not far from downtown. It's just a little bit out from downtown, which is kind of nice because the parking is easier and the crowds aren't so insane. And if you're stopping in before work or on your lunch break or after work, whatever, it's just really slick and convenient. And Flipside is a big place. So if you're coming in with friends, there's going to be room for everybody. We're going to tap the golden can during Ebo's Over the Line in the morning. I'll be there later on in the day on Friday, 4 to 6 for this show. And they're going to fire up some happy hour specials that wouldn't normally be offered on Fridays. So a lot to take advantage of. And it's just fun to get to La Crosse for Fest and to see our WKTY listeners as well. All right. Find the podcast. I'll get it up posted in just a couple minutes so you can listen to what you missed. I will be back tomorrow at 4. Enjoy the huddle with the big unit, Bill Michaels. See you.